Welcome back, mamas and mamas to be. Welcome to Miss Toni's 40-year-old pregnancy journey. Thanks for joining me for week 23 of my pregnancy journey. So this week, the baby is the size of a grapefruit, about 11 inches and 1.2 pounds. So baby's finally getting some growth. Baby's hair is actually getting some color. So it's translucent actually up until this point. And now the baby's eyebrows and the little bit of head on its head that it does have is starting to develop some of that melanin color, which will be dark brown because that's what all of us have. So if it's a girl, to be able to do her hair, which is a gift and a curse. I found that my two little girls have different hair textures and their textures are different than mine. So I have to buy 3 different sets of products for all of our hairs. So if it's a girl, hopefully she'll have the same texture as one of us. If not, I'll do some experimenting, some trial and error, and figure out what products work best for her as well. And if it's a boy, thank God, because I won't have to do hair every day or every other day anymore. I have been getting my braid on with my girls, so the styles have been lasting for at least a week. I'm making sure I oil that scalp, so sometimes with my 4-year-old, hers can last even longer. So that's been helpful, especially during quarantine. But, you know, if it's a boy, I'll let that hair grow for maybe that first year and then start to let the baby get haircuts. So either way, it's pretty cool to know that their hair is developing and getting some color right now. So the next thing I wanted to update you guys on is pregnancy symptoms. My new symptom is Braxton-Hicks contractions, which I didn't feel with my first or second baby. I remember one time going to one of my appointments with my firstborn, Kennedy, and the nurse was looking at the machine. She had her back towards me, so she was facing the other way. She turned around, she kept looking at me like confused, and I had no idea what was going on. I was actually starting to get worried because she wasn't saying anything. So I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? And she said, you don't feel that? I'm like, feel what? She's like, you're having contractions like pretty regularly. And it was about, I think it was only 2 days before I went in labor. So she was telling me that I was having these contractions that I wasn't even feeling, and I was that close to delivery. So this time around, I'm 23 weeks and I'm already feeling these Braxton-Hicks. So I don't know what's the difference or what's changed with my body, but I woke up 2 nights in a row due to the cramps that I was having. And for me, it feels like cramps. I know every woman has a different experience. If they do feel their Braxton-Hicks contractions, then sometimes they say it feels like a knot and then it just loosens up on its own. Sometimes it feels like a cramp. Sometimes it just feels like a hard spot on the tummy and it goes away. So mine just feels like they feel like cramps, and it doesn't last long. I haven't counted, but maybe 10, 12 seconds. But again, it's been enough to wake me up out of my sleep for a couple nights in a row. And so this is a new symptom for me, not only with this baby, but just in general being pregnant for the 3rd time. So I Googled, because I'm like, okay, is this definitely Braxton-Hicks contractions, or is this that round ligament pain? My sister-in-law had told me about her round ligament pain when she was pregnant with her last baby. So I was like, maybe it's that. And it's interesting, the difference is really slight between the two. It seems that with Braxton-Hicks, you're usually not moving, and then all of a sudden you feel that cramp or that tightening. Whereas with the round ligament pain, that ligament right around your pelvis starts to have some pains, but it's usually while you're moving. So you'll be in the middle of doing something and then it'll hit you. And if you kind of just change your position, then it'll go away. That's not what my experience has been. Mine has been more so I'm laying down or I'm sitting still, and all of a sudden I feel that tightening. And then, like I said, after a number of seconds, it goes away, especially if I drink water or if I just massage the spot really quickly. That helps it to go away a little bit quicker. So I think mine are actually Braxton-Hicks contractions, which is so interesting that I'm feeling it this early. Again, you may have felt it way earlier in your pregnancy, but for me, this feels super early at 23 weeks when I've never felt these before. Another update is that I finally told my job that I'm pregnant. I told my director and she was just so excited for me. You never know how they're going to respond. Thankfully, I work with a woman, so she has kids of her own, so she was like overjoyed. Actually, she had a way more excited expression than I thought she would when I told her how far along I am. And so she's like, the company we work for is so generous with their maternity policy, and there's no like protocol in place for you to tell me at a certain point. She's like, you could have told us the day you delivered and we would have just done your paperwork in retrospect. She's like, this company does not have a protocol in place like that, because we feel like this is your personal life, this is your family you're dealing with, this is your health, this has nothing to do, it's completely separate from your work. And so I love that response. I really did. I've for the other 2 kids, I also have female managers at the time. I think I mentioned on one of my videos. So with Kennedy, I told my manager one-on-one, and then we had a meeting in person that was maybe a week or so later. And so at the meeting, she gave me an opportunity to tell everyone on our district team as a group. And everyone was very excited, and it was my first one and everybody knew it. So everybody was really geeked. And what was interesting though is that when we had a little break afterwards, one of the girls that I worked with at the time pulled me to the side and she was like, so I know you're going to take a nice maternity leave, but don't go off for too long. I mean, you don't want to let your business hang. And I was like so shocked that a woman would say that to me, like, don't take your full maternity leave because you don't want it, you know, your job to be affected or your sales numbers to be affected. And I don't know, it rubbed me the wrong way because I'm like, she had kids, she was young, she was a little older than me, but she was relatively young, and she was Hispanic, but you know, she's not a minority. And so I just was very shocked that she had that mindset. And I just had the opposite mindset. I'm like, I'm taking off as long as I need to. I don't want to pin myself to saying I'm going to take off X amount of time and then I feel like it's too early and I'm not ready to come back to work. I also don't want to pin myself to say I'm going to be gone for this extended amount of time and then have to redo the paperwork when I'm ready to come back. So I like to just kind of go with whatever the policy is, whatever they allow, and I'll go with that date. That's what I did for the first 2 kids. And that's what I'm planning to do. But with the company I work for, my manager told me that I could actually be off for an entire year if I wanted to. It sounded like some old Canada kind of stuff. I was like, what? A year? Most of it will be paid, not the full year, but most of it actually will be paid, as I mentioned in my last video. And so I did tell her, like, I'm not planning to take that long off because I'm not, but I don't know. And she's like, well, you don't even have to tell me how long you're planning to take off. Take off as long as you need. And so she didn't even ask me my due date. Like, she's like, that's your prerogative, that's your business. But I had the opportunity this Monday to tell the whole team that I work with. Again, we were working from home, so it was all on Zoom, but everyone was ecstatic and people were calling me afterwards and texting. So it was very cool to be able to tell my coworkers, and they're like, we had no idea. Like, we see you on Zoom every other day. And I'm telling them, just like I tell you guys, like, thank God I don't show, you know, I don't put on a lot of weight when I'm pregnant. And so it doesn't show fully like some women show in their face. My skin doesn't get affected. My nose doesn't widen. I don't have like those physical characteristics that are like the telltale signs for a lot of women. So especially looking at me on a camera, you can't tell. Now in person, y'all know I finally popped. So I do have some belly, and I will show you guys what I'm working with now. So again, not too much, but for me, this is just enough. 6 months, almost 6 months. So I'm looking forward to hitting that 6-month mark this week and hitting that 24-week mark. Time is flying. I really do feel like this pregnancy is flying by, and this baby's going to be here sooner than I am ready for. But I am enjoying the journey. As you guys know, this is my last baby, and so I am taking it all in stride. Even with new symptoms, Braxton-Hicks contractions, I still am enjoying the journey fully. And that's why I decided to document it this time, because I didn't want to forget anything. I'm not going to be pregnant anymore. I have a sister-in-law who don't have kids yet. I have a lot of best friends, a lot of homegirls that don't have kids yet who want to have kids. So I want to be able to share my experiences with them. But you know, if you've had kids, you know, after you've had the baby, you don't remember nothing. People ask you questions like, so how did you do this? And how long did it take you to do that? And you're like, even though that was like just last year, I don't remember. So for me, I actually write everything down. And I did that, especially like when I'm breastfeeding, just anything, any part of the journey, I usually write down. This time I decided that I was going to do it on video and share it with you guys. Because I wanted just to have that experience documented visually this time. So if you haven't done that, I would suggest either doing the videos every week, like me, just to document your week by week journey, or writing it down just in your iPhone and your phone, making notes and have it in there in a cloud forever, so you can always revert back to it if you don't remember what was going on when you were X number of weeks pregnant, or when you brought the baby home from the hospital and you didn't remember when your colostrum turned into milk, and you didn't remember when the baby's little belly button cord came off, stuff like that. You just don't remember. So write it down. It's a really good habit. Well, that's all for this week. Thank you for joining me on week 23 of my 40-year-old pregnancy journey. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, comment, and like. And definitely share with your friends if you know anyone who's going through a journey of pregnancy, or if they're planning to and they just want to know what's up, they want to have some idea of what they're getting themselves into, then tell a friend and have them subscribe too. I'd love to hear from you. If you have any comments, please share. Would love to hear it. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you next week, week 24. I'm going to finally have my pictures back from my photographer that we took for the maternity pics. And so I'm going to be posting those on my Instagram, which is official Miss Toni. And if you haven't followed me on Instagram yet, please do so. I will follow you back. And that's it for this week. I can't wait to see you next week.